So, we spent the last two episodes talking about the front desk. So, you might expect that we would say that the gaps in your schedule are always going to be a front desk problem. But truthfully, it's not. Sometimes it really is marketing. So, today we're going to give you a 30-minute audit that tells you which one it is before you spend another dollar.
We're going to cover 3 steps in this episode. First, we're going to cover why pouring more ad spend into the front desk problem just makes it a bigger mess. We're going to chat about the only 2 numbers you need to tell the difference. And third, we'll dive into the audit itself. 30 minutes, tools you already have, and a clear answer at the end.
So, is it safe to assume that if you see gaps in your schedule, most people think that it's a marketing problem? And then what? You go out and spend more money on ads?
Yeah, it's the easiest answer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the where's my leads is by far the most common problem because you can measure that, right? And also it's comfortable. It's someone else's problem.
True.
You don't really have to look further than send me more leads. And where the leaky bucket or the leaky cauldron, as I like to call it, is more complex. The biggest one is keeping people on schedule too. I mean, it's just not holes in schedule are a multiple front problem when the reappointments happen, keeping those on the schedule, the confirmation. We see a lot of people canceling over voicemails, and the default move is just call your marketing team and tell them what's up. And there's validity to that,
Yeah.
but that is incomplete. And the if they're we would expect a normal office to convert 50% of the new patient calls into appointments. That's a good rule of thumb. And if they're not, that they're the easy one. But if you're not getting the calls at all, that's a big deal. But it's not as simple as just looking at the marketing leads, because the companies who do that tend to give really crappy leads.
Well, of course, yeah. If you're getting paid for volume,
yeah, why would I?
You're just going to do what you got to do to get that volume.
Right. But and I think it's down to a philosophical differences. Are you investing in marketing for leads, or are you investing in marketing to grow your practice?
Bingo.
And that's where you got to dig into the real meaty.
I know we've had prospective client calls where they come to us and we almost have to turn them away in a sense of letting them know, like, hey, it sounds like you have an operational problem. Like, I know that how do those conversations go? Like what do we tell clients whenever it's very clear they have an operation problem? Like, because you need to lay the foundation before we can get started, right?
Absolutely. And it can be a tough conversation because oftentimes it's someone they like or someone they've had for a long time answering the phones, and it may not be effective, right? And warmth and effective aren't always the same thing, right? It's the kind of, is it nice or is it kind, right? And so it's around showing them the data and saying, hey, our average offices, like we said, close 50% of new patient opportunities. You're in the 30s. Let's talk about what's going on. No, we're not coaches. And
yeah,
the reality is there may be many great employees that don't answer the phone well, but it does create a lack of congruence when you're trying to say, give me more leads, and you're turning away 7 out of every 10. not making it on the schedule because had you picked those up, you would have made your new patient goal, right?
Right.
So it now we're all emotional decision makers, and we use data to support our emotions more
Mhm.
often than not. And I guess at a certain thing, if you had enough phone calls, it wouldn't matter if you close 1 in 10, but that's not realistic because you have to look at it costs money to generate a phone call.
Mhm.
And if you're dealing in $100 of a phone call on Google search ads or on video ads or something like that, you're you're sort of having to spend your way out of a hole, and it doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
And the right thing to do is focus on the why you're not converting them. And
Yeah.
most of the offices we have good coaches that we can help come have that conversation. But it revolves around there, and it is changing the paradigm of what they think about marketing.
Mhm. But the point is you need to you need to find out why. You can't just look at the gaps in your schedule and assume that it's a marketing problem. You also can't assume that it's a front desk problem. So, look at the data and measure
Mhm.
first. Oop.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is it's really just two numbers that you need to pay attention to. Um,
2 numbers.
yeah, two numbers.
Well, let's look at those 2 numbers. What are they? I'm intrigued.
The fir- the first one is lead volume, like we talked
Okay.
about, and I think lead volume. That's how many calls you get, and how many of them are new patient opportunities. And the front desk is always going to complain that the quality of patients isn't high,
Mhm.
and there's you have to filter through that. I think anyone who's calling a dental office has the opportunity to be a new patient. Now, of course, if they're heavily medicated and you don't accept Medicaid, if they're,
Mhm.
trying to get grants or free dental work, that's not interesting. But most people are calling a dentist because they need help, right? So I'm saying
Right.
somewhere
In
between
some way. Mhm.
there is a valid amount of new patient calls, and you'd want to measure them.
Sure.
And the second number is conversion, and that is like we've talked about. What percentage of them are you closing?
Mhm.
And it requires real work because the just like anything, the devil's in the details on those of what do you call a new patient and what are you calling a conversion. And I think it's pretty simple. Uh, Lead volume or new patient calls are driven largely by marketing. That is a marketing problem. And um, you need, if you need 50 new patients, you need 100 new patient calls somewhere along the way.
Mhm.
And that's a good way to look at marketing and evaluate the effectiveness of marketing. Um, and if you're not closing 50%, that's the conversion. You're overspending on marketing or you're under achieving as a business.
So I guess as a rule of thumb, if you have a low amount of leads, but decent conversion, then that's a marketing problem. But if you
Hmm.
have a decent amount of leads and a low conversion, then that's the sign that it's the front desk.
Yeah. Or cancellations,
Mhm.
I'd say is a bonus one in there because
Yeah.
they you've heard the dentist say, "Oh, the people in my area just don't care about their teeth," or the people in my area just say, "Leave it." And that's true in any area.
Mhm. Mhm.
You have to overcome that, and the same is true in the front desk. If people aren't converting, you have to understand why,
Yeah.
and maybe you aren't handling the calls as well as you think you are, and 50% is a pretty nice and conservative number. Our strongest practices are north of 60.
Yeah.
And that makes their marketing spend so much more effective because again, like if a call's $100 and they're closing, you're closing 1 in 3 and they're closing 6 in 10,
Mhm.
their cost per acquisition is significantly lower. And so their marketing investment is going further.
Well, how if you zero in on lead volume versus conversion, how do you end up on a decision that's going to help your practice?
Yeah, let's go step by step through the audit,
Okay.
and let's dig into it because the answer is in there. And the first thing you want to do, and it should count you, it should take you about 10 minutes, is count the leads. And the way we do that is go into CallRail. And, we used to manually listen to them. Now, of course, we use AI and
Hmm.
with the human audit, but go in and go into CallRail and listen to the calls and count how many
Hmm.
there are. It doesn't take you a long time. If you
Yeah.
don't use CallRail, Mongo, and all the other, a lot of the other systems have them.
Is
A lot of the counting your leads is one of those things where you're going to go in and look at the whatever software you're using,
yeah.
and we use CallRail.
And don't forget your, web forms or any like chat, text, things like that.
Yeah, I
Count those
love
leads.
the Facebook message that goes unanswered for 3 weeks.
Oof.
Yeah, that's a good one. Step two is you have to count the scheduled appointments. Um, and
Hmm.
that's easy. Just go in there and how many of those calls became scheduled, and then you
Yep.
got to do some math. You might want to get someone to
Yay,
help you
math.
if long division's hard. You know,
Hey, it is.
how did you learn to do long division? Do you remember? Could you do it by hand?
Honestly, I don't even think I could. I don't think I could do it. Okay, so what's the math? You're dividing booked appointments by those leads that you just counted, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you divide the number of booked appointments by the number of leads.
So, okay, what? That's essentially your conversion rate.
You're right, and that's going to tell you how effective your front desk is. Now, that's not a judgment on them, but that is a judgment on the way they book appointments.
Mhm.
And I at some point the math has to stand, right? Someone who books 20 appointments is just 20% of the appointments is less effective than someone who books
Yeah.
60.
Yeah.
And that is. And then I think from there, the next step is listen to the non-booked calls.
Yeah.
And what happened? I mean, did they just go to voicemail and you got back to them 2 hours, 3 hours later after they found someone else? Did do you take my insurance? No, and hang up?
Click. Hmm.
Right. Um, it did they need to talk to their spouse, which is, a polite way of saying no? But why?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You may be surprised there could be like a common theme across why people didn't book.
Right. And a lot of times what we hear is that the person who's answering the calls does great, but because they're busy doing other things, they're not answering all the calls. So then someone else is
Mhm.
picking the phone up who's not as gifted at answering the questions, or
They're just kind of filling
they're
in
filling
for
in.
overflow. Yeah.
And that's dangerous
Yeah.
because you really need to prioritize someone's job to, they can do other things, of course, but when a call comes in, it is an investment
Yeah.
and you need to treat your investments right.
Amen.
Especially today. I mean, in 2026, we've seen cost per call just continue to increase across the agency. And, you know, any call you miss is, you know, I'm going to say on average probably costs you $70 to $100 in marketing dollars.
Okay. So we have these three components. What what do we do with them? How do we know? Are we healthy? Are we not? What do we do next?
Yeah. If you have low call volume and high conversion,
That you
um,
got from above.
that you got from the above,
You know.
that's the marketing problem. If you have good calls coming in, but conversion below 50%, you got to look at your front desk
Right.
and are they busy? Where is it going?
What if they're both low?
No, I
No.
mean,
Like how do you yeah, I guess where do you start if they're both low?
okay, if both are low monetarily, fix conversions first,
Okay.
because that's the building the pyramid of the base, right? It's fix conversions, convert more. Okay.
Yeah.
And then invest in marketing once that happens.
Mhm.
And I'm even saying that of like, if both are low and you're spending money on marketing, scale back on marketing then. And if they're good partners, they'll do it, because
Yeah.
nobody wants to waste money.
No. Gotta be efficient.
Yeah. But
Um,
fix conversion first.
okay. Well, half an hour looking at into some simple data can get you your answer, or at least a good direction to where what's causing your gaps in the schedule.
Yeah. And then it'll let you have a real conversation around it
Yeah.
instead of just assuming. And it is hard, because the hygienist is going to tell you that they scheduled the appointment and added value. The front desk is going to tell you the leads aren't there and that people are just calling to cancel. But you still got holes in your schedule.
Mhm.
And instead of reacting to the last person to tell you some bad news, you should really take a look at what's happening, and
Yeah.
let's do some maths together.
We do this with clients if there's ever, gaps, and it's happened before where the leads were, a little thin, so that's on us on the marketing side. Like, it happens, but we'd rather know so that we can obviously fix the issue from the root and not just try to treat and throw more money at it.
For sure. And your marketing team, there are things we can do when we're not driving enough leads. And some markets are tough,
Right.
and you need to know that. You need to know that. Yeah, absolutely. But but it, to kind of final thoughts, just stop guessing about your schedule. The gap is
Mhm.
telling you something, but only if you measure it and look at those two dials and focus on fixing it.
Well, we turned these steps into a one-page audit worksheet that you can run this week. You can grab it from our show notes and just block out half an hour of your time and find out which problem you actually have at your practice.
And if you'd rather us just run with it, book a call with us. We'll tell you the truth, even if it's not in our best interest. And, that's our job.
That was your bite of dental marketing.